How was your day yesterday?
She was there. Yeah, she was there. She went up to Captain
Mike, testing 1 2 3 4. I'll keep talking for you. Check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Check.
Where do you guys check this mic? It's like super fuzzy for me.
Are you, what are your, like, micro lines? No, you were like, now you're mic. Oh, okay.
Check 1 2 3 4 5. Check. Okay, cool. No worries.
So it's going to get a little warmer than I should have. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming out here. That's all I do.
Yeah. Let's see, I think this is spelled wrong. Yes.
Don't tell me that.
Sorry, it is.
So did anyone watch the data class?
See, I know. Tell me about it. It's ruining my life.
I'm so worried about first. I'm like, you sure that's like someone's first? And they're like, yep.
Yeah, I know. That's how it goes. It's never the thing you worry about. I can assure you that.
I've learned now, don't trust lists you get from other people. You have to Google each person, I guess, and make sure.
We have to every single time.
You got a third revision coming out?
Ian?
Yes.
Yes.
That comma, stand by for a third revision.
Well, are these all to row 3? Hey, it's up.
What's changed?
Cool. I got 3 through 4 now. Wait, sorry. What's that? Okay, we're saying. Okay, now.
He's still Tom.
Yep.
That hasn't changed.
No, that isn't. All right, this is fun. Right? Probably just take that. So are you guys streaming this on the web? Like, do you want to produce a camera pretty live? Kind of. It's all good. He reached out. He said he probably wouldn't get here in time, actually, but Cool. Well, I'll try to. I mean, I'll still give you those like a little bit as it kind of goes, but I'll try to kind of integrate. I have a second camera going, so you know.
Yeah. Or at least they're fresh in my memory.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'm sure people don't think it's or something.
But then we got a top of DNR person.
It should go through that same process for all.
Oh.
Get around it, going in up here.
Yeah. You never know who's going to show because. So you wrote it.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah. I was up at a race for Grandma's house. I was good.
and was it your first
That
one?
was my first time down. Not fast, but I was faster than I fucking could. What was that?
Well, you should be a person, something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What'd you get?
It was like 10 degrees.
As they say, you're faster than
Yeah. So I'm not trying to be fastest.
Well,
I'm just
And I also learned, no, I also learned it's kind of funny because
yeah.
they're like,
Louise were like very good actually.
once you pass like the fourth,
It's a little creepy. It's a little creepy. Like, I don't want to be that fast. I want to just have fun.
then you just have to.
Bartender, like her space. And stuff.
No, I was on the phone, yeah.
I just
But I have family up there.
Oh, stay.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody to celebrate with afterwards.
like I buy like monster by like Vandalia. It's kind of like a big like yeah, it's actually it's like it's like pretty good.
Okay.
This weekend was just like no.
Yeah. Like, I set up last year, and I just want to make sure we have to Yeah. And so then that night I was like, I'm not going to run unless I have the race. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Long time no see.
Yeah, we did
Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Real quick, introduce myself, Howie Padilla. I'm the Director of Communications for the Department of Public Safety. I believe you've been introduced to the folks who will be speaking today and the others who will be present for questions afterwards as needed. Real quick reminder that as you ask your first question, if you would please do us the courtesy of your name and your media organization you're with, that would be great. Obviously, you're going to know who these folks are. Before we get started, any questions for me?
How do you spell your last name?
P like in Paul, A, D as in dog, I-L-L-A, and I'm sorry, that's Rochelle Olson. Thank you.
Let's go, guys.
Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Jacobson. I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety, and I have the honor of serving in that position. First of all, today I want to thank Governor Walz, our federal partners from FEMA, and all the state agencies who are here today and who have been here for days on end. You're all helping our residents and businesses through today's challenges while looking toward a recovery for our communities. Our State Emergency Operations Center continues to operate, serving and supporting Minnesotans and our emergency management and government officials across the state. My thanks to those who are leading those efforts in local communities. I know it is daunting. And even as I prepared for what I was going to say this morning, you could hear the rain that was falling, yet again reminding us that we still have some work to do. We are still working on responding and supporting ongoing needs, all while transitioning to ongoing damage assessments and documenting the scope of this disaster. For our residents and business owners, please document those damages to your property with dated photos and keep receipts for those repairs. This will be extremely important as we document damage levels going forward. With that, I also want to thank our emergency responders who have been there helping our residents and businesses in these very challenging days. And I also want to send out a thank you to those many volunteers and to all those who are out there helping us each day. You are the shoulders and the strength on which people are now leaning. What you are doing now, being there in these times of need, is exactly probably what drove all of you to do this work. This is truly a team effort. And now with that, we're going to begin some more detailed updates, and I'm going to turn it over to Governor Walz and the rest of our team. Governor?
Thanks, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Jacobson, thank you to you and your team. I'll echo those thoughts. I know there's a lot of tired folks out there. They're doing the work, but they understand their sleep rotations. They understand of 24-hour flood fights, and that's happening. Same with our Minnesota National Guard troops, still down in Waterville, still stand on the ready. So, again, we got a bit of a reprieve in the last few days with some sunny weather. I hope that we're at the point, it seems like, and you'll get some more updates on this, that we start thinking about that transition, to start people seeing what comes next, the rebuilding piece of this. But we know this is incredibly really good on this. Our ag folks seeing the rain, it has a psychological impact on them. I want to give a thank you to the Executive Council. Yesterday approved the extension of the state peacetime emergency. The way the authority works is I can declare it lasts for 5 days, and then the Executive Council comes together, and it was a unanimous vote. So we're extended for the next 30 days. You're going to hear from Administrator Sivak in just a minute, and the folks from FEMA and the federal government. I had an opportunity to speak with the Administrator on Monday and spoke with President Biden on Wednesday. Wednesday. We have submitted our federal disaster declaration request that is in. The assessments are still coming behind that, but it doesn't surprise anybody in this room. The threshold numbers are being met quite easily because of the widespread damage. This has been about the last 10 days. I was in Cook a week ago. This spreading out across the state. Recovery is kind of going from north to south, so folks are out there. It would be just my request to folks that we're still in a dangerous situation. Floodwaters are still rising in certain areas. It's still very unpredictable. You'll hear from MnDOT Commissioner that we still have roads closed. We're opening some as quickly as we can. Don't make that decision on your own. Highway 169, for example, is open from Mankato to St. Peter. It's closed to Le Sueur. Don't make that trip. But we've got again, folks here from agriculture, from DNR and others. We're coming up on a 4th of July weekend in the midst of this, and there'll be some questions about what facilities are open, what precautions to take. Being on the rivers and on the lakes is different right now because of the high water, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to put safety as a forefront. But again, I'll express my gratitude. This is going to end up being one of those potentially top 10 flooding events in Minnesota because of the diligence, the hard work, the procedures, and the professionalism. At this point in time, we have no serious injuries or deaths involved in this. We will rebuild when we get the assessment there. We always can. We will replant, or we'll have crop insurance, and we'll be back again. But now it's in these times we can't get careless, continue to focus on that. And I'm just grateful, as I would say, the emergency managers from the county level all the way through, and then our partners at FEMA. There is a process for doing this, and we are incredibly grateful. FEMA has been on the ground here. They've been in constant contact. They've been assisting us in this, and they're providing to make sure that we can provide and fulfill all the requests. With that, I would give you FEMA Administrator Sivak. Thanks, Administrator. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much, Governor Walz, and good morning, everyone. First, I'm Tom Sivak. I'm the FEMA Region 5 Administrator based out of Chicago. Before I get into what we're going to talk about today, I just want to recognize the resilience of those in Minnesota and recognize the hard work of the Governor Walz, you and your administration, and every single one of the departmental agencies across the state and the local level as well. We know that you've been in the fight. We know that recovery is a long road. We recognize that there will be challenges ahead, and especially on the mental health side of it. Every time that rain comes, we do recognize that, and our hearts are with you, and we will continue to work side by side the state of Minnesota to be able to make sure that we can get to a place where we can get on the road to recovery. Since the storms began on January 16th, local responders and voluntary organizations have been hard at work, getting the help where it's needed. And through Governor Walz and the state of Minnesota and the Minnesota Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency, we've been able to see the resources that have been available and also be able to further assist those. At my direction, as the situation continues to unfold, we've deployed staff members up here to work side by side the staff at the Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency. One of the most important things we were doing there is validating the types of damages that were coming in, and what we've seen is that there's extensive damage across the state of Minnesota. And one of the things that we focused on this week was the declaration process. As we've done that, I want to emphasize a few things. Number one, the governor's request is not a guarantee that federal assistance will be available. We do not make a determination about the disaster declaration during our damage assessments. However, we have been here working side by side with the state agencies and the state departments receiving those damage reports, and I can say that disaster request is currently in process. And that's on the public assistance side of the House. Now for individual assistance side, as we are continuing to gather those damages, I cannot emphasize this enough. Pictures are worth 1,000 words to us. The time and date stamp of the damages in your homes, if it is safe to do so, is going to be vitally important for us as we go through the damage assessment process. Even basements. Basements do matter in understanding those living areas as well. Debris that might be out in the yard. We saw in Mankato on the news this morning that there are debris and people are starting to move into that road to recovery. That picture does help us as well. So please take pictures and document that process. The other thing, too, is over the next couple of days and weeks, there will be teams that are coming out to do damage assessments, as we call it, a joint preliminary damage assessment. As those teams come out, there will be teams of Federal Emergency Management Agency or FEMA partners, our Small Business Administration, SBA partners, along with our state partners. Our relationships with the state of Minnesota are strong, and they will continue to get stronger throughout this event and future. The other thing is they will go door to door. We need to understand the implications and the impacts of what's taking place. And when we focus on that, it's for us to tell the story of the size and scope of this particular event that's still ongoing as of today. Our teams will not collect personal data. We want to understand the extent of the flood damages so we can understand the needs of the residents of Minnesota. And as I previously mentioned, and I want to make sure that we emphasize this, is that the state has determined the damage is beyond the state and local resources to handle. That is why the disaster declaration process right now is in process. And before I close, I just want to focus on a couple of things. Do not wait to reach out to your insurance companies as you're focusing on the recovery period. Reach out now. Understand what needs are for the insurance documentation process. We understand it's long. And make sure that you work with your local emergency management agencies too. That's one of the most vital ways that we can understand the size and scope of this event. Our teams are moving as quickly as possible, and we want to ensure that we're being as thorough as possible as well. In these types of events, we are committed to getting the most accurate picture possible and sitting side by side with our state partners. We're going to continue to focus on this to make sure that we focus on the road to recovery. And with that, I want to turn it over to the Minnesota Department of Transportation Commissioner, Nancy Daubenberger.
Thanks, Minister.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Daubenberger, and I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Transportation. And I'm keeping all those impacted by the flood in my thoughts and my prayers. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's working so hard to keep our communities and roadways safe during this unprecedented event. And the volunteers, the National Guard, our MnDOT crews, other state agencies, and our county and city partners, and so many others who are working together to help with the immediate needs of flooding and preparing the work that will come to repair and rebuild our system. So I have some updates to share with you on road closures that are happening statewide due to the flooding and high water and receding in some areas. And the good news is many highways are reopening to traffic now that the water is going down, and that includes highways 15, 30, and 75, and others in south central Minnesota, Highway 14 near Lamberton in southwest Minnesota, and as our governor mentioned, Highway 169 between Mankato and St. Peter is now open, and others will continue to open over the next few days. Also, I do want to repeat, though, too, as the governor mentioned, Highway 169 between St. Peter and Le Sueur is still closed due to water on the roadway, and we hope to be opening that up over the next few days. We'll continue to monitor that, watch as the water recedes, and we'll need to look for damages. But parts of Highway 60, 62, 71, and more in southern Minnesota are also closed. Several ramps in Mankato area remain closed. Hoping to open some of those up today or in the next few days, but in the Twin Cities metro area, Highway 41 near Chaska and the exit ramps to Black Dog Road off of Interstate 35W are closed, as well as a recent closure, South Highway 101 Frontage Road in Savage. And we have a new closure in southeast Minnesota over the last couple days, Highway 60 near Wabasha, and we may see more closures as the Mississippi River continues to rise. So please use our traveler information website, 511mn.org, or the mobile app for your smartphone to see updates on closures and road reopenings and other travel impacts, and those are for state highways statewide. Also, please, drivers, do your part to stay safe. Never go around a road closed sign or try to drive through the roadway, as our governor mentioned. I just want to repeat that is so important. And please know our work is far from over out there. Our crews will continue to inspect roadways and bridges and identify any damage and ensure they're safe before we can reopen them to traffic again. So we'll continue our work assessing damage and repairs in the coming weeks, And in certain locations, this is going to take some time. We're making progress, but as I mentioned, we still have more work to do in the coming days and months, and that's why we thank everybody for their patience. We want to reopen these roads as soon as possible, but we do have to make sure they are safe before we can do so. So thank you again. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dan Hoblitzel from the National Weather Service.
Thanks, Commissioner. Deliver some good news.
I'll do my best. Good morning. Dan Hoblitzel, meteorologist in charge with the National Weather Service here in the Twin Cities. So we got some rain last night, and I know that set off some alarm bells with some of us as we woke up to some images of standing water in our yards and fields. I do want to assure everyone that the rain that fell last night will not have any significant impacts to the ongoing flooding. What we saw was just the fact that the soils are saturated. The soils really can't take too much more water still at this point, but the rivers can. The rivers can take quite a bit more water than what fell last night. So the main impact from what did occur will just be simply to maybe prolong some of the flood waters just a little bit compared to if there had been no rain at all. And we did see a little bit of a rise in more smaller and urban small creeks and streams. And of course, we'll want to take the necessary precautions with those. But otherwise, we're not expecting any significant impacts with the rain that occurred last night. So the good news is we are now going into another stretch of a drier weekend, fortunately, which will allow a lot of these floodwaters to continue to recede. And that has been the case across much of the state so far. So a lot of the rivers like the Cannon and the Des Moines are going to continue to go down through the weekend. And in fact, we're now tracking only one real significant crest, which is currently coming down the Minnesota River. That crest resulted in record flooding in Henderson on Wednesday. At that location, it has now begun to fall. That crest reached Jordan this morning, which did match its record flood stage this morning, and will continue to Savage, which will crest Sunday morning at major flood stage, but not record. So we are not expecting any more record levels to the flood waters. It should end at Jordan. However, we will still see major flooding across the remainder of the Minnesota, and that will continue to cause major flooding as that empties into the Mississippi River, and we are expecting major flooding at St. Paul, which will not crest until tomorrow evening. Just shy of 21 feet is our forecast. That would put it as the 7th highest on record for that location, and the highest since 2001 in St. Paul. So that would slightly exceed the level that was reached in 2019. That crest will then also result in major flooding toward Hastings, and then once it merges with the St. Croix, that will broaden the channel a little bit, which kind of mitigates some of those impacts, but still expecting above moderate flood stage for locations such as Winona and downstream from there. So like I said, we are expecting mostly dry weather over the weekend, which will allow some improvement with the flood conditions. We are, however, watching a next system that will come Monday into Tuesday. That does bear watching right now. Most indications are that another 1 inch to 2 inches of rain are likely with that system. Following on the heels of a dry weekend, that should prevent too many major concerns. Again, most impacts from that would be simply to prolong a little bit the flood waters that would be ongoing. So St. Paul downward. Other locations, we're not currently seeing signs of enough rain to reintroduce flooding problems. However, I do want to supplement that with there are indications that heavier rain could fall. Right now that looks more likely across Iowa, but as we know, as these systems, especially in the summer, can be a little unpredictable. So it's worth watching over the weekend and seeing if those trends change, and we will of course monitor that very closely. We are seeing indications that if that were to come up further into Minnesota, that would in fact bring flooding concerns back to some locations that were already dealing with it. Not seeing signs that it would be to the magnitude that we dealt with, but of course at this point any flooding at all would be unwelcome. So please do continue to keep an eye on that, and for further flood information, please check our website at water.noaa.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for the accuracy and the professionalism, and it really helps us plan accordingly. So I think what you've heard today is that Minnesota, we're at a transition point. The assessments and the recovery phase is beginning. We'll continue to keep an eye on things on the horizon. It's at this point in time, you've heard all of the advice, whether it's not driving around barriers, keeping all the receipts, and making sure you're taking those photos and doing everything necessary. And we will be doing everything possible that we can do to start getting ready for providing the resources, the reimbursements, the help that we need to. With that, any of these folks would be glad to take a question, and we've got some other commissioners, National Guard, and folks here too.
FEMA guy. Michelle Olson from the Star Tribune. You mentioned people going door to door and that they won't ask for personal information. I mean, it sounds like you're sort of warning people that if somebody comes and asks for your credit card or your social security number or something, I mean, how do people know that they're your people instead of some fraudster?
Yeah, thank you for that question. One of the most important things we can say is that when we go out and start working on the joint preliminary damage assessments, they will be in logoed and in credentialed gear. So they'll have their badges that they have both with the Small Business Administration and also with our FEMA folks. They'll be in FEMA logoed gear, and then they'll also have their Federal Emergency Management IDs as well. We will be working hand in hand with Homeland Security Emergency Management when this is happening to make sure that we are sharing who's going to be coming, when, working with the local, through the state to local emergency managers to get out that they're going to be in the field. So as our teams come up and our teams start to go door to door, which they are not doing right now, is that we will make sure that that is messaged appropriately, and we'll coordinate that with our external affairs as well.
So when might you start the door to door?
So right now we are still in the assessment phase. We are working hand in hand with Director Rollwagon at Homeland Security Emergency Management. Right now there are still areas that are still flooded, and I've seen that firsthand, especially over in Waterville when we went on a flight earlier this week. So as these floodwaters start to recede, one of the things that we'll do is, at the request of the governor, to come in and do the joint preliminary damage assessment. We'll have teams on the ground as soon as possible. One of the things that we have the ability to as FEMA is we can bring a lot of people quickly to start focusing on the recovery of the community and gathering that damage information.
But anybody could get like a FEMA outfit.
We will work hand in hand with the Department of Public Safety and Homeland Security Emergency Management to make sure that that messaging goes through the counties of when we're going to be coming and working through the joint preliminary damage assessment.
It's a good question. I appreciate going to that dark spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another week.
We have great information.
Director, thank you. Appreciate it. Your team's getting some sleep and everything.